She stood beside her billionaire husband, flawless in silence, until his father humiliated her in front of everyone. No one expected her to say a word. But 5 minutes later, she vanished, holding the deed that would bring their legacy to its knees. The camera pans over an ocean of flashing lights, champagne toasts, and the sound of a grand piano echoing in a marble hall. Tonight is the Sterling Foundation's annual gala, where billionaires gather not just to donate, but to be seen donating. Every eye in the room flickers toward the entrance as the main doors part. And there she is. Aisha Monroe Sterling, regal in a midnight blue silk gown, skin glowing under chandeliers, her presence radiating quiet command. But what the cameras won't show is the weight behind her smile. The years it took to climb here. The boardrooms where her ideas were taken but not her voice. The way some still looked through her, even when she stood center stage. But tonight, she tells herself, will be different. She walks beside her husband, Marcus Sterling, the heir to a billion-dollar empire. Polished, poised, the media darling. Their hands are linked for the photos, their smiles choreographed. And yet, even as flashes go off, there's a flicker in Aisha's eyes, an unease. She had felt it in the car, in Marcus's silence. Something simmering under his perfect tuxedo exterior. Still, she steps into the ballroom as if it were her birthright. Because Aisha didn't marry into wealth to play ornamental wife. She built programs under the foundation's name, created real change. She earned this spotlight. As Marcus begins his opening speech, Aisha stands beside him. The applause dims. He thanks the attendees, nods to his late mother's legacy, and then gestures to Aisha. And none of this, he says, would be possible without the tireless work of my wife, Aisha Monroe Sterling. A woman of grace, intelligence, and... That's when it happens. A soft voice, just loud enough to slice through the applause. Let's not pretend she's the reason this family matters. The words hang in the air like smoke. Spoken by Henry Sterling, Marcus's father, gray-haired, sharp-eyed, seated in the front row with a flute of champagne and a smile carved in ice. The room stutters. No microphone, but everyone heard. Because he wanted them to. Marcus freezes. Aisha turns her head, slowly, eyes locking with Henry's. For a moment, the ballroom disappears. There's only that voice. That venom. That reminder, no matter how far she's come, there are still those who see her as not enough. Marcus doesn't defend her. Not even a glance toward his father. He clears his throat, continues the speech. Aisha's hands are trembling now, but only she can feel it. On her face, grace, still. Inside, a war of humiliation, disbelief, and betrayal. The same war she fought silently in meeting rooms, behind closed doors, when being the diverse face didn't mean being heard. She forces a smile, lifts her glass, and nods politely to the crowd. But her eyes are glassy now. This is not just personal, it's public. A wound opened in front of hundreds. When the speech ends, she slips away. No scene, no raised voice. Just the soft click of heels down an empty corridor. Out onto the veranda, where the cold bites against her skin and tears finally fall, hot and silent. The audience sees her framed against the city skyline, alone, exposed, but not broken. This was the night meant to crown her legacy. Instead, it will ignite her revolution. The wind whips across the balcony, but Aisha doesn't move. Her fingers grip the railing, knuckles white, mascara trailing down her cheeks like the truth she's tried so hard to hide. She does not belong here. She married into this world, yes. But she was never invited. Behind her, laughter continues. The gala rolls on. Toasts clink, and Marcus is back inside, mingling like nothing happened. As if the most humiliating moment of her life hadn't just taken place, on a stage, under lights, in front of people who already questioned her worth. When she finally returns to their penthouse, Aisha doesn't speak. She steps out of her heels, hangs up her dress, and sits on the edge of their pristine white bed, staring into the darkness. The silence is so loud it's deafening. Marcus walks in a few minutes later, tie loosened, voice tight. He didn't mean it like that. Aisha laughs. Not the sweet kind. The bitter, sharp kind that says, "Are you serious right now?" He said it, Marcus. And you just stood there. Her voice cracks mid-sentence. You didn't even flinch. Marcus throws up his hands. It was a room full of donors, investors. I couldn't start drama over a comment. A comment? Her voice rises now, and for the first time, her pain becomes fury.
That wasn't a comment. That was a message.
He looked me in the eye and tried to erase everything I've built beside you.
He sighs, defeated. You know how he is.
He doesn't respect anyone who didn't grow up in this world.
No, she replies.
He doesn't respect me because I remind him that this world isn't his alone anymore. That night, Aisha sleeps on the couch, not because Marcus asked her to, but because the bed they share no longer feels like sanctuary. The next morning, Aisha begins to move quietly. She contacts Naomi Bennett, her childhood friend and the only person she trusts implicitly. Naomi's sharp, a corporate lawyer with roots just as humble as Aisha's. They meet for coffee on a rooftop far from the Sterling estate. Naomi listens, arms folded, expression tight. You've kept every receipt for the work you've done for his foundation. Aisha nods.
Every contract. Every signature. Every document. Even the deed Marcus gave me after our wedding.
Remember? The property I wanted to turn into a youth center.
Naomi leans in.
That deed, did you ever look closely at it?
Aisha shakes her head. Do.
And get it appraised. If it's what I think it is, you've got more power than you think. That evening, Aisha rummages through a locked drawer and finds the deed. Thick paper, embossed seal. Her name in bold, Aisha Monroe, sole proprietor.
She stares at it for a long moment.
Then something shifts in her face, not anger, not sadness, but awareness. This man who humiliated her, this family that tolerated her only when it was convenient, they never noticed she had already been handed the key to her own exit. Not just an exit, a way to reclaim herself. Back in the office, Henry Sterling is already laying plans to push Aisha out of the foundation board. He tells Marcus, she's too emotional. Too soft. She'll hurt the legacy if we don't take control. Marcus hesitates, his silence speaks again.
The storm is building now. But no one sees it. Not yet.
The morning sun spills across the penthouse like a spotlight, bright, accusing. Aisha stands by the window, the deed clutched in her hand like a lifeline. The paper is cold, the words inked in permanence, sole ownership, Aisha Monroe. A gift, Marcus once said. A symbol of trust. But now, it feels like something entirely different. It feels like a key.
To her exit. To her power.
Naomi's words echo in her ears. You've got more power than you think. And now, for the first time in weeks, Aisha doesn't feel cornered.
She feels calm. Controlled.
But beneath that calm simmers something ancient, something born long before Marcus, long before money, survival. She folds the deed gently, as though it's sacred, and tucks it into her leather planner. Today, she won't cry.
She will prepare.
At the Sterling Foundation's office, Henry Sterling is already 2 steps ahead, but in the wrong direction.
He's holding an emergency board meeting. The topic?
Stripping Aisha of decision-making authority. He doesn't mention her by name, he simply refers to structural inefficiencies.
But every member in that room knows what he means.
Marcus is there too, seated beside his father. Silent again. When Aisha enters the room, uninvited but entirely poised, the air shifts. She's in a tailored black suit, heels clicking like a metronome counting down something inevitable. Apologies, she says softly, placing a folder in front of each board member. Before any vote is cast, I believe context matters.
She doesn't shout. She doesn't accuse.
She simply presents emails, project summaries, financial records, every program she built from scratch. The youth literacy drive,
the housing reinvestment plan,
the scholarship fund,
all bearing her signature, her vision.
Then, with surgical precision, she places the deed at the center of the table. This building, she says, where we're sitting right now, it's mine.
Gifted to me. Signed over. Legally recorded.
Which means every meeting, every function, every gala hosted here, rests on my ownership.
The room goes still.
Henry blinks, just once. His hands curl around his pen. Aisha turns her gaze to Marcus.
Did you know? She asks him, voice low. He swallows. I forgot, he lies. No, she replies.
You chose not to remember. And there it is, the moment that changes everything. The twist. The man who stood beside her on their wedding day, who claimed to love her, gave her the power to break his father's empire, and never noticed. Now she's using it, not out of vengeance, but necessity. That evening, Marcus returns home to find Aisha's wardrobe half empty. Her favorite books, gone. Her wedding ring, sitting on the kitchen counter beside a typed note. It reads, "I was never asking for acceptance. Just respect. You handed me the deed thinking it was a gesture. But it was freedom. I'm choosing it." He crumbles the paper, hands shaking. Down the hall, in a quiet downtown office, Aisha unlocks a modest new space, her own. The air is dusty, but it smells like beginnings. She unpacks the deed first, sets it on the desk. Then she closes her eyes and smiles, not because the fight is over, but because it's finally hers. The news spreads in whispers first, unconfirmed murmurs bouncing between boardrooms, charity circuits, and backdoor meetings. "Did you hear? She owns the building." "No, not just the foundation HQ, the whole property." Henry Sterling dismisses it all as hearsay. "She's bluffing," he scoffs. "The girl's emotional. That's what they do when they are losing." But Aisha isn't losing. She's planning. And she's not bluffing. 2 weeks pass. Just enough time for calm to settle into Henry's routine. He hosts a private investors' roundtable at the Foundation HQ, the very building Aisha owns. It's a pitch to wealthy stakeholders to fund his next pet project, a luxury housing development under the Sterling name, cloaked in a false promise of community uplift. He steps up to the podium, ready to present his vision. That's when the room dims. The projector flickers, but instead of blueprints and investor slides, a legal document flashes across the screen. Property title, sole ownership, Aisha Monroe. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Henry's voice falters. And then, she walks in. No grand entrance. No vengeance-laced monologue. Just Aisha, wearing power like perfume. Composed, clear-eyed. Every step a statement. "I apologize for the interruption," she begins. "But I thought you should know. The property you're all sitting in tonight, and the land slated for your so-called revitalization project, belong to me." Murmurs rise. Investors glance at each other. Henry turns pale. "I wasn't invited to this presentation," she continues, "but I have a responsibility. Not to legacy. Not to vanity. But to community. This land will not be used to displace the very people I built my work to protect." She pulls out a new set of documents. Effective immediately, this facility will be reproposed as an independent nonprofit, the Monroe Initiative. All Sterling-affiliated access is revoked. Henry lunges forward. "You're destroying everything we built." "No," Aisha says, her voice ice. "You destroyed what I built. I'm simply reclaiming it." The room goes dead silent. Marcus is there too. He'd arrived late, expecting to smooth things over. But now, watching her speak, he realizes too late. The woman he once underestimated has grown beyond anything he could contain. After the meeting, Aisha walks to her car alone. Her assistant offers to call security, just in case. She waves it off. "They can't touch me." And she's right. Back in the Sterling estate, Henry rages behind closed doors. Investors pull out. Donations stall. Board members resign. Marcus stares out the window, the same window where Aisha once stood trembling. Now she's standing on her own stage, and he's not even in the wings. The emotional reversal is complete. Aisha's revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was devastatingly elegant. She didn't just take the deed. She became the deed. The very foundation that sought to erase her name now bears it, in stone, on the door, and in every program she funds from here on out. And for the first time, Henry Sterling is forced to do what he's never done before. Sit in silence. It's been 3 months since the night Aisha walked into that boardroom and rewrote her own narrative. The Monroe Initiative is no longer a whispered concept. It's real. Alive. A brick-and-mortar haven sitting exactly where the Sterling Foundation used to loom like a fortress. But where the Sterlings built monuments to themselves, Aisha plants roots. Her new office isn't as grand. No marble floors, no rooftop views. Just warm wood, soft light, and the hum of children laughing in the after-school room downstairs. The scent of fresh paint still lingers in the air, and the walls are slowly filling with photographs, not of galas, but of moments, a scholarship recipient's college acceptance, a mother hugging her son after securing housing, a young black girl grinning as she points to a mural she helped paint on the building's side. Aisha sits behind her desk, sleeves rolled up, a cup of ginger tea cooling beside her as she reviews proposals. She's tired, but it's the good kind. The kind that comes from purpose.
There are no paparazzi outside this time. No red carpets.
Just people who look her in the eye and say, "Thank you."
Marcus Sterling calls. Twice. She doesn't pick up.
He even stops by once. Unexpected, uninvited. He stands awkwardly in the lobby, hands in his pockets, a look on his face that isn't quite regret, but close enough. Aisha meets him at the threshold. "I just wanted to see how you're doing," he says.
"I'm well," she replies, with a soft smile.
"You?"
He shrugs. Empty house. Quiet dinners.
"My father barely speaks to anyone anymore." Aisha nods. He waits, searching her face for a crack, a softness, something that says maybe, just maybe.
But it's not there. She's not angry. She's simply gone. "You gave me the deed," she says gently.
"But you never gave me your voice."
"I didn't need wealth. I needed partnership."
"And when it mattered, you chose silence."
He looks down. She doesn't invite him in.
Later that week, Naomi visits the center. She leans on the doorframe, watching Aisha finish a mentoring session with a group of teen girls.
After they leave, Naomi raises an eyebrow.
"So this is what freedom looks like." Aisha chuckles.
"Not quite. But it's what healing looks like." She turns and points to the cornerstone outside the building.
Newly etched in granite, the Monroe Initiative, founded by Aisha Monroe, for the future. Naomi's eyes shimmer. "You didn't just leave. You leveled up." Aisha looks out the window, watching a mother walk her child to the entrance.
"I didn't need to destroy them," she says. "They were already falling apart.
I just stopped holding the pieces together." The words hang in the air, quiet but powerful.
She doesn't speak of revenge. She speaks of responsibility. Because this was never about winning back power. It was about remembering that she never lost it.
Viewers watching this aren't just seeing a woman reclaim property. They are witnessing someone reclaim identity. The kind of transformation that doesn't need applause to feel victorious.
Just purpose.
The camera fades in on Aisha walking alone down a quiet city street at sunrise.
No bodyguards. No designer gown.
Just her, jeans, a soft trench coat, and calm in her every step. She passes the old Sterling building, not the one she took, but the one she walked away from. A monument to wealth without wisdom.
She doesn't stop. She doesn't look back.
Because Aisha Monroe has nothing to prove anymore. A voiceover begins, her voice, serene and unwavering. There's a kind of silence more powerful than rage. A silence born not of defeat, but of choice.
"I was never meant to fit their mold.
I was meant to break it." Cut to her inside a small auditorium, speaking to a group of young women, all from neighborhoods like the one she grew up in.
She tells them about the night she was humiliated. She tells them about the silence that followed.
But most importantly, she tells them how she used that silence, not to crumble, but to build.
Dignity isn't loud. But it doesn't bend. It doesn't need applause.
Or validation. It only needs you to remember who you are, even when they try to make you forget.
They see her not as a billionaire's ex-wife. Not even as a public figure. They see her as proof. Proof that quiet women are not weak. That grace is not passivity.
That justice doesn't always scream. It sometimes whispers through doors it owns. Meanwhile, in a polished corner office, Henry Sterling sits in front of a stock ticker that's fallen a little too far. Marcus is in another room, meeting with a PR crisis team, the word rebranding echoing through the walls. But no press release can change what the public now knows. They lost not because she fought them, but because they underestimated the only person who never needed their approval. Back at the Monroe Initiative, a team member updates Aisha. Enrollment tripled. We've got grant requests from 3 new districts. Aisha just smiles.
Tell them we'll make room. She doesn't ask for the spotlight. But it finds her anyway.
Because when you stand in your truth long enough, even the world learns to adjust its lighting. If you've ever been silenced, sidelined, or underestimated, Aisha's voice returns in closing, just know, what they fear most isn't your anger.
It's your clarity.
It's the moment you realize, you've always held the deed.
Fade to black. Text on screen.
Inspired by the quiet force of women who never stopped building, even when the world tried to break them. If this story stirred something in you, don't just watch in silence. Like it. Share it with someone who's ever had to choose dignity over comfort. And before you go, tell us in the comments. Have you ever walked away from something powerful because you realized you were the one holding the real power all along?